Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 67. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. You can call it Victory Monday. Mike Tomlin won't because there's more work to do. But Dave, these Pittsburgh Steelers have done it again. A third straight win, maybe the team's biggest and best of the season, defeating the Detroit Lions 29-24 Sunday evening. A wild game that came down to the literal last play of the game that had a lot of things going on afterwards, but when the dust settled, Pittsburgh had won, and that's all that matters. And now their chances to make the playoffs and win the division become extremely real. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, but what a win. What a couple of wins. Dave, how you doing?
How am I doing? I think I just started to feel my legs again. For starters. Second thing I'd like to say, Mike Thomas says there's a fine line between making wine and squashing grapes. It's a fine line between Victory Monday and gloom, despair, and agony Monday, I guess, if you will. What a game. I'm not sure any of us will forget that one anytime soon. And, over the long career of Mike Tomlin's coaching career, which obviously dates back to 2007, there's been a lot of great home and away victories that he has over the years. I'm not sure this one exceeds the 2012 win on the road against the Ravens with Charlie Batch quarterback. But if not, then I think this one we might have observed the second best road win during the regular season of Mike Tomlin's career. And coincidentally, both those games, the Steelers were 7.5-point road underdogs in that. So, I did not see this coming. No way, shape, or form. It was, in my opinion, a very improbable victory. But we've seen across the NFL, specifically this year, some of these games that really, really look like one team was almost guaranteed a victory before the ball even kicked off. But that's why you play the games any given Sunday. That's why I'm still a firm believer that there's no such thing, as a trap game in the NFL. Really, really impressive win, a much needed win from the Steelers' perspective, especially the way things transpired Sunday night in that game between the Ravens and the Patriots. And oh, how the turntables, right? Here we are now with 2 weeks left in the season, and the Steelers. It will be quite surprising at this point if they don't make the playoffs. And just a few weeks ago, there were chants of fire Mike Tomlin, and I really had my doubts about this team being able to finish and make the playoffs. But here we are.
Here we are. So to start off, before we get into our housekeeping and talk playoff scenarios and the DK Metcalf situation and more in-depth thoughts about this game, how did Pittsburgh pull off what is maybe one of the best, at least one of the best, most recent wins of Mike Tomlin's tenure? What were the keys for Pittsburgh to do that, to topple Detroit?
I think you got to start. We talked a lot about what a Steelers win would potentially look like. Even though both of us predicted that the Lions would easily win this game, I think you got to start with explosive plays for both teams. The Lions had 6 of 20 yards or longer. and two of those ended up in touchdowns. The Steelers, on the other hand, were able to match them with six explosive plays of their own, and three of them were double explosive plays of longer than 40 yards, all three magically 45 yards, and all three of those resulted in touchdowns. So the Steelers needed every last one of those. And I think you start there with the explosive play category, not only equaling the Lions in that category, but outdoing them by one with three of them ending in touchdowns there. I think the second thing that you point to is the turnover battle. And technically on paper, the Lions won that 1-0, but that's why there's conversations about things that count as turnovers and takeaways, if you will. The Steelers had one fourth down stop, obviously early in the game, in when the Lions were driving deep in the Steelers' own end. They had a strip sack, safe or not strip, a sack safety, which you might as well count that as a turnover, even though it technically does not go in the books as such. And then whatever you want to call the final play of the game, technically that came as a fourth down play. But because there was a penalty involved and all, that goes in the books as a no play and officially does not go down in the books as a fourth down stop. So if you look at that, the Steelers won that 3-1. And so if you go 6-6 on explosive plays, and if you want to, if you count 3-1 win on the takeaway battle, that's a +2 talks. And as the stats go, roughly 80% of the time, if you win the talks battle 2-2, you're going to win the game there. So that's I think that's the big picture. Now, there's a lot of obviously small picture stuff in between, and then you start digging even deeper, and to hold that Lions offense to 15 yards net rushing, just absolutely phenomenal, and a big component, you know, of this win. And then on the other side, the Steelers, what was it, 200 net yards rushing on their side of the ledger. I guess totally 230, I think was the actual total there. I mean, you outrush a team like the Lions 230 to 15. Uh, you got to circle that. And then, the other, obviously I think the other component there was the first down play by the Steelers, and Dan Orlovsky, I think, highlighted that 6.3 yards per play for the Steelers offense on first down in this game. So that's a lot of stuff there, but and it doesn't really even still encapsulate everything. But I think that's where you got to start when you give a 30,000-foot view of this Steelers win.
That's a good place to start, and I really appreciate you kind of walking through the maybe hidden turnovers or the fourth down stops and safeties in that final play that won't even get reflected as a fourth down stop, even though it so obviously was. But I do look at this run defense for Pittsburgh, and I'm surprised Detroit seems so uncommitted to running the football. I know it was a 2-score deficit they were consistently facing late in this game, but still it's 12 total carries, only 11 by the running backs was surprising for an outfit that had been so potent and been so good running the football. I'm sure some of the interior offensive line injuries in this one to their centers and guards were a factor in this one, but Aaron Rodgers had more rushing yards than Jamar Gibbs. Who expected that in this game? Jonnu Smith had more rushing yards than the Lions as a total outfit, which is just crazy. But I think back to August, and I mentioned last week in one of the episodes that the Jonnu Smith final touchdown just to put the topper to beat Miami was a play they installed during training camp after Johnny Smith got traded over following, OTAs and minicamp, and how that play in August, resurrects itself into December to help you close out a game. And then Mike Tomlin, as he was walking off the field yesterday into the tunnel, talked about 7 shots, which is basically what that end game sequence was. Just a bunch of plays down there on nearly the 2-yard line, goal to go situation, game on the line, go make a play. And Pittsburgh made those plays. And you practice with intent, you practice for a reason, you practice how you play. And Pittsburgh does that because they want to be a really good situational team in those weighty moments. The red zone offense has been excellent this season, not quite as so this game, but on the season, still very good. And the red zone defense in that moment stepped up in a situation that was very similar to 7 shots. So I think back to the stuff you do in August that's helping you win in December and potentially giving you a chance to continue playing into mid-January. That's kind of how I think about this game.
Yeah, that's a good point there. That's a great way to go back to some of the things that this team works on before even the season starts. I got to step into confessional here for just a moment before we move.
I guess I'll become the priest in this situation. Didn't sign up for it.
Yeah, and the rest of the congregation listening. At no point during that game did I think the Steelers were going to win that game. Did I feel comfortable thinking the Steelers were going to win that game? At no point was I in belief that they were going to win that game, and especially after Boswell doinked that field goal. Even had he made that, I'm not sure I would have been mentally. I just, you just have this sinking feeling, and especially the way, as potent as the Lions offense was, even though not on the ground, through the air. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at that they were still able for the most part. Look, the Steelers had a lot of good third down stops, and that's, another aspect of this game as well too. But down, Herbig and Watt in this game on the defensive side of football, and you lose, Brandin Echols. You had to have Jalen Ramsey go down in the slot. You had to have Chuck Clark play additional snaps at safety in this game. I at no point, even after the second Jalen Warren 45-yard touchdown run, I got to be honest, I kept thinking, man, they just got to keep it up, I did not feel comfortable throughout that entire game. That's why I joked at the beginning, just starting to have feeling back in my legs again. I was a non-believer, even the way that, because the game transpired perfectly for the Steelers throughout. You get to halftime and you're 10-10. The Lions can't run the football. The Steelers making plays when they needed to, and then you come out, you get that safety in the third quarter there, and but still, I was a non-believer all the way up until that final play there. So this was a earned victory on the Steelers side, no doubt about it. And that's why I'll continue to think that this road victory was probably should go down as the second best in Mike Tomlin's long career here, especially when it comes to regular season play here. So I wanted to just get that off my chest because I was not convinced they were going to win this game.
Say a couple Hail Marys, and hopefully you've seen the light now. And I think a lot of people, myself included, really have to give this team a ton of credit for pulling off a win that I don't think anyone really expected, and maybe shame on us. And I should have said this. It's always easier in hindsight to make these points. But the Lions, they were the favorites for a reason. They had a great offense, but they were 8-6. They had a bad defense. They had a bunch of injuries. They were not this invincible juggernaut that couldn't be beaten as maybe last year's version or a couple years ago version of themselves. So it certainly was a team that's taken on a lot of water this year, and now their playoff hopes are almost zero, as Pittsburgh has about a 90+% chance of making the playoffs. And frankly, they could punch their ticket before they even kick off on Sunday. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But let's start with our housekeeping, Dave, and then we can dive back into this great win for Pittsburgh, presented as always by our friends at touringplans.com. If you guys are planning a trip to Disney, as you guys know, for our Monday episodes, you can check out our friends and partners at touringplans.com. You can get advice on how to save money on tickets, restaurant reviews, when lines are going to be the shortest in the parks for Disneyland, Disney World, anything for Disney Cruise Line related as well. When it comes to Disney, these guys are the experts on everything about the most magical place in the world. So check out the site, touringplans.com. Check out the app as well. Really appreciate their support. You guys, they're always with us through training camp and also on our Monday housekeeping portion. The founder, Len Testa, big time Steelers fan, and I know he was pumped up by yesterday's victory. So again, thank our partners, touringplans.com, and tell them that Steelers Depot sent you. All right, Dave, let's do the housekeeping portion. Pittsburgh making a couple of roster elevations prior to kickoff on Sunday. They elevated a pair of players in cornerback Daryl Porter Jr., who ended up having to play one snap in this one in relief of Joey Porter Jr. Also, they elevated Jack Driscoll, the offensive lineman, as additional depth in this game, because Isaac Seumalo was ruled out. TJ Watt, Nick Herbig did not play. James Pierre sat out as well per the final injury report. In terms of the mid-game injuries, Brandin Echols went down with a groin injury. Calvin Austin, a hamstring injury that forced, as you said, Ramsey to come down, play slot. Chuck Clark to come in and play free safety. Had to kind of shuffle things around to make it work because cornerback depth is thin. And then Scotty Miller getting extra reps with Calvin Austin missing the second half of this game, and Miller stepping up with a big catch on third down and fourth down.
Yeah, the elevations overall, I don't think was it was a minor surprise, I guess, with Porter instead of maybe Leal there, but it was understandable because of the lack of because of not having James Pierre and because of how potent that Lions passing game is. To have an extra DB cornerback, and it's a good thing that they did because Echols went out, and I think and then Joey Porter Jr. I think had to leave for at least a snap in this game due to injury, and I think that's when the other Porter got in there and saw his little playing time and all, but not huge surprise. I think the biggest surprise overall, or at least a minor surprise, was Kaleb Johnson being a healthy scratch. And, once you work through the minutia, because Christian Kuntz got upgraded on Saturday, and the questionable tag removed from him because of that knee injury. I suppose the Steelers were still a little iffy about that, and they gave Logan Lee the extra helmet over Kaleb Johnson because Logan Lee's could be the emergency long snapper, and B, they were obviously thin at outside linebacker, even though they could have Malik Harrison technically step in there. They obviously dressed Jeremiah Moon, who they had signed off the Carolina Panthers practice squad. So I think it was a little bit of a twofold decision, maybe. I don't think Kaleb Johnson necessarily did anything wrong or got himself in any sort of a doghouse here to get himself inactive. I just think the Steelers had to have 7 inactive players for this game because of elevating 2 from the practice squad on Saturday. This ended up just being a numbers thing with Kaleb Johnson, and he's not a special teams player right now at this point. And the funny thing about it, after the fact, here is Logan Lee never even saw the field in this game. So I know people were a little bit caught off guard and think that this is a major, demerit, I guess, if you will, for Kaleb Johnson. But I just think this ended up being a numbers game, and I think Mike Tomlin just wanted to protect himself against Christian Kuntz and that knee injury to make sure at least he had somebody that could serve as a long snapper in an emergency situation there. So that's the way I look at that. Now, Roman Wilson, I expected Roman Wilson to be a scratch again, and Scotty Miller with his experience to get the helmet over him. And boy, we'll talk about this a little bit later. Scotty Miller made some plays in this game that can't be denied there. So I know a lot of people are still down about Roman Wilson, third game in a row being a healthy scratch, but that really for whatever it's worth, seemed to pay some dividends for the Steelers in this game against the Lions. So I think that wraps up the housekeeping portion of what happened on Saturday and Sunday.
Just quick note on the inactives. It is disappointing, and you understand this time of year that you just have to do what you have to do to have the lineup out there to win. Winning is all that matters. But when your third round picks of this year and last year, and Kaleb Johnson and Roman Wilson are both healthy scratches late in the year, that is a bad sign, obviously, and not what Pittsburgh intended when they drafted those guys. So we'll see what the future looks like. We'll see if Roman Wilson gets ahead either by a DK Metcalf suspension or Calvin Austin potential absence. We'll see if Kaleb Johnson gets ahead, if the team gets overall healthier for Cleveland. But it's just obvious to note that your 2 third-round picks are now sitting there in street clothes late in the season.
Sure, sure. I mean, and it's obviously creating some discussion, and obviously probably should, but that's a problem for another day right now. This team's on the cusp of the playoffs, and they're doing a lot of good things on offense right now. And really, I don't know. Can we transition from the housekeeping part right now?
Sure, let's get into this game. 29-24 win. Pittsburgh 9-6 on the season, in clear control of the AFC North and locking up that 4 seed. Do you want to talk about the game? Do you want to get into brief kind of playoff situation? Where do you want to start here, Dave?
I mean, we can get into the game and kind of save the playoff talk here for the scenario stuff at the end here. Aaron Rodgers, a third game right in a row where this guy was in total control of knowing exactly what he wanted to do on a play-by-play basis. Once again, and look, I know it's draft season, and we're looking at all these quarterbacks, and it's not an exact science, but man, the experience, there's just there's no, trade-off for what an experienced quarterback can give you, especially one late in his career that doesn't have the mobility and lacks a lot of things that maybe that same quarterback would have had. Now, Aaron Rodgers still has his fastball. He can still chuck the football down the field. He can still spin it and all like that. But the experience of Aaron Rodgers now for 3 games in a row, this guy's been in total control of this offense and knowing exactly what he wants to do. Now, he did, I think, make one faux pas late in this game on the third down above the 2-minute warning, where he threw the football away and probably should have just stepped up and taken the sack and let the clock run down to the 2-minute warning. That all gets brushed. The Steelers won, so that all gets kind of brushed to the side there. But had the Steelers lost this game, yeah, you do kind of wonder if we might have been circling back to Aaron Rodgers throwing the football away, stopping the clock, and not running it down to the 2-minute warning. But that's a conversation that we fortunately don't have to have there. But just overall, the communication and the play-by-play, several checks that he made, and one instance in there later on in the game, basically the communication with Adam Thielen, a big completion over the middle of the field to move the change. A lot of that stuff. That's why you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So I just thought it was a magnificent game overall for Aaron Rodgers, and now that makes 3 in a row, specifically when it comes to him.
Yeah, he continues to be dialed in and really good on third down. I don't know exactly what his third down stats were in this one, but a lot of connections to Miller and Adam Thielen and just really having complete command of this offense. And you're right, bring him in for stretches like these and for games like these. And I thought Rodgers did a great job. 9 different guys caught a pass, and so the ball continues to be spread around to virtually everyone, trusting guys to go out there to make plays. Play fakes have been really strong. Yeah, I mean, even what was the play before? I think the first Warren 45-yard touchdown, you're backed up 1st and 20. You get a holding call there that really hampers you, negated probably, a 2nd and 5 into 1st and 20. And Rodgers flick of the wrist, those back shoulder fade money to DK Metcalf, and 1st down, we're good again. We're back in the flow, and then Warren scores right after that. It kind of sums it up to me. But yeah, it's just Rodgers again continues to be brilliant in this one. He looks more comfortable in the pocket. I think he's trusting his offensive line more. He's not bailing and dropping his eyes as often. He's keeping his eyes downfield. He's able to extend some of these plays, go through his progressions, and just dialing up defenses right now.
Yeah, he was able to diagnose, I think, a lot of what Lions were trying to do defensively, especially as the game went on. Remember that this is a Lions defense, and Tony Romo was smart to point this out. That had been predominantly a man type defense, where they showed a lot more too high throughout the course of the game here. So Aaron was smart at diagnosing that, and obviously took the opportunities down the field. Now, he only completed, what was it, I think 2 of 7 passes of more than 15 yards down the field in this game. When you talk about air yards, I envisioned Steelers win having a few more completions than that, but he made both of them work. Obviously, one of them was late in the first half on a tremendous catch by Kenneth Gainwell, who then had the wherewithal to get up and finish it in the end zone there. That was one of them. And the second down the field throw, more than 15 air yards, was the back shoulder throw to DK Metcalf, which with what you said was a 1st and 20 situation. That ball was out by Aaron Rodgers. I mean, before Metcalf even knows it's coming, technically, in that situation there. So it was a great two very, very key plays in this game, completing the ball down the field. And then, yeah, you're right. The very next play after completing that ball to Metcalf was one of the two 45-yard touchdown runs by Jalen Warren there. Was Aaron Rodgers absolutely perfect in this game? No, I don't think he was, but it was good enough. And man, Scotty Miller, a couple of key catches. I think one of them was on a 4th down. The ball was a little bit behind him, made a contested catch in that situation. And then the one over there on the sideline, being able to get both feet down in that situation was absolutely fantastic. Aaron Rodgers also had a nice kind of no-look pass to Darnell Washington. That was a key play in this game as well, too. So even though he was not completing the football down the field, made a lot of great reads overall, completed a lot of key passes in this game, and the Steelers got just enough yards after the catch, or even adjusted yards after the catch in this game. Even though the Lions had the edge in that category, the Steelers certainly got enough of them to matter. And then you talk about the run game overall, man. This was the best this run game has obviously looked all season. There were several runs in this game where the running backs were not getting touched, if any, at until the second level there. The 2 touchdown runs by Jalen Warren, one of them wasn't touched at all. The second one, I think, or first one, just barely touched in there. The offensive line, absolutely fantastic in the run game. And when the Lions were showing us 2 deep safeties, the Steelers certainly were intent on making them pay with the running game. And you get 230 or whatever some yards in the game, even against and look, the Lions were definitely beat up in the secondary, but that front of theirs is not bad at all. And especially their linebackers that we talked about ahead of this game, and for them to have the execution that they had up front in to get 2 double explosive plays, and both those end up in the end zone. We've talked about that several times over the years. Not only is it, explosive plays of 20 yards or longer is absolutely stealing in a game. And to get 2 of them of double explosive variety, and not only that, they end up in the end zone. Those were key difference makers in this game for sure. And then I guess kind of the last initial point that I have about the offense, I have the Steelers down, Alex, as rough charting going through the TV tape last night, passing out of a essentially empty backfield 22 times on 45 total dropbacks in this game. So roughly 50% of the dropbacks that the Steelers had in this game, they did out of essentially empty.
And I think Mike Tomlin spoke about that, knowing the Lions stay in their base defense so much with those three linebackers. We spoke about that Friday with Dave Burkett, and you wanted to try to isolate those guys and put those guys in space and get those matchups on Gainwell. And I think the Gainwell touchdown was a good example of that, of being able to win out there on a linebacker crazy play as it was. So I think that was kind of maybe the intent, was to really use the horizontal space of the field and isolate some of those DBs, because the Lions don't like going sub that often. So I don't know if Pittsburgh played as much 11 personnel as maybe we anticipated, or as much as they did against Miami, but they still kind of had the same approach by stressing the Lions defense that wanted to keep its big people, its linebackers, on the field virtually at all times. You got some great clips up there on your timeline, Dave, this morning of those Warren touchdowns. And explosive plays in general for Pittsburgh have been hard to get, but especially in the run game for years now. That was the big bugaboo on Najee Harris whenever he was the lead back in this offense. Good downhill runner. The big plays weren't there. You were missing that. And Warren certainly providing that, but it was great blocking up front. I mean, that first one you're running, toss into the boundary, formation in the boundary with Darnell Washington, Spencer Anderson. That's been your bread and butter throughout the season. Just a lot of big people over there and moving people out of the way, creating the lane. Warren found it and finished it off. Jaylen Warren, the first Steelers running back to have multiple touchdowns of 45-plus yards rushing in the same game since Frenchie Fuqua in 1970. Wow. So that's a fun stat of the weird that we were able to pull, and heard the broadcast mention it a couple minutes after that. So, yeah, it's rare for Pittsburgh to get those kind of big plays. They got him. It's a great team effort. That second one, DK Metcalf throwing a good block, Connor Hayward throwing a good block. Anderson Frazier had key blocks on that play too. So it took everybody to win this game. Took every play. It took to the last play, but Pittsburgh comes out on top.
Yeah, and that first home run TD by Jaylen Warren, a great reach block by Andres Pete, coming back from obviously concussion. And really, really great reach block on that. Now, that doesn't get home without the other great blocking on that, but I thought I was really, really noticeable on the all 22 end zone view of that. And that leads us to another point here. The Steelers were without Isaac Seumalo, obviously, in this game. Spencer Anderson was your primary starting left guard in this, but the Steelers were still able to use their jumbo eligible package in this game quite frequently at that. I don't have the totals on that, but they were able to bring Pete into the game several times at left guard, and then have Spencer Anderson as their eligible reporting lineman in here. And the ability to do that spoke volumes and paid dividends in this game as well too. So even though, once again, without Seumalo, huge loss going into this game, but you wouldn't have. And you're obviously on your fourth tackle. Dylan Cook, second NFL start, really was once again above the line. Just the offensive line all across the board, I thought, played a very, very good game. And anytime you're talking about, once again, 230 whatever yards rushing in a game, and I don't care how banged up. What is Mike Tomlin? Nobody cares about our problems and all like that. But the Steelers certainly didn't care about the Lions' problems in this game when it came to defensively and their secondary being makeshift at this point. And they knew how to attack it. And as mentioned, they went empty quite a bit in this game. And we saw Spencer Anderson in the backfield again as a fullback. We saw Connor Hayward line up in the backfield quite a bit. We saw, I think, one or two plays with both Warren and Gainwell on the field. Saw Jonnu Smith in the backfield a couple of plays in this game. So Arthur Smith had the full bag open for this game offensively, and that played a huge component in this win, along with the execution.
Fly sweeps to running backs like Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, like you said, the whole menu was used, and it's fun whenever you're in OC and you get to use the whole menu, because sometimes based on game script or just based on your offensive struggles or being limited in some way, you can only maybe use some portion of the menu, some part that you feel comfortable. I feel like Arthur Smith felt like he could call anything in this game, and Pittsburgh could execute, and frankly, they often did. And that kind of says a lot about this group, because it's not just the guys that you signed back in the spring and the winter that you thought, or the guys that you drafted that you thought would get you to this point. I mean, it's Andres Pete helping out. It's Dylan Cook helping you out. It's Adam Thielen and Scantling. I mean, it's just a bunch of guys that you kind of cobble together along the way because you've had to make it work, which I think kind of makes this team even more fun and intriguing and easier for maybe the outside fan to root for because it is kind of this just, I kind of call
Underdog.
it the underdog, the cast-offs, the island of misfit toys to use the more, I guess, Christmassy holiday reference. So that kind of makes it fun as well. But yeah, Pittsburgh out rushing the Lions by 215 yards in this game, the biggest margin they've had against an opponent since the Panthers in 2014. So Pittsburgh, I mean, that's just, who would have expected that one in this game? But yeah, offensively, 8 of 16 on third down, 2 of 2 on fourth down. So you were 10 of 18 on those possession downs. I got to continue to give Mike Tomlin credit for being aggressive, Dave. That was required in a game like this where you knew the Lions were going to be aggressive. They had to win this game. Their natural state is to be aggressive anyway. And so Pittsburgh was so offensively. And then defensively, too, they were ready to stop the Lions' aggressive moments. That fourth down stop was obviously really big early in the game on 4th and goal. But offensively, just a full hand in the pile effort. Again, so many guys getting involved, run game, passing game, the offensive line doing their job. I mean, how many offensive linemen played in this game? A bunch of those guys, too. It wasn't just your front five, obviously. Spencer Anderson, Anderson started, but, Pete, as you said, coming in. And then it sounded like Anderson was kind of banged up through this game, too, and he gutted out whatever he was dealing with. We don't know exactly what the issue was, but a lot of players kind of made reference to that. Anderson trying to push through something in this game because they were getting really thin along the offensive line at that point. So just impressed kind of by the totality of that unit.
Yeah, how many games are we removed from the previous Yazoo tush push play?
That happened in Chicago, week 12.
Okay, so perfect time to pull that back out going the other direction. But, you put that on tape like that, you're kind of curious about trying to run it. I guess it has been several weeks now, but that worked splendidly. It was a perfect call and going the oftentimes when you see that kind of stuff, you end up going because what in the other way, going the other direction in the game against Chicago, not only down the other direction of the field, but obviously to the right. And this time you're going the opposite direction down the field, and you're running it the opposite overall direction to the left in that. So smartly. That was a great call and the perfect time for it in that situation as well too. So once again, I mean, they had the full bag. Arthur Smith was able to call pretty much anything that he wanted to in this game overall, and the Steelers, for the most part, executed swimmingly.
And Smith certainly deserves a ton of credit, but I felt like the offense opened up a little more after half. The offense got more aggressive, kind of ran a little more through Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that was Rodgers kind of saying that or whatever the case was. We saw him make a bunch of checks. There was one third down play where I felt like he was doing just like, you run this route and you run this route, like that kind of thing, and just making sure guys were in the right spots and putting the ball exactly where it needed to be. So full team effort in this one. But yeah, it certainly still starts with Aaron Rodgers.
Yep, absolutely.
Any other thoughts here offensively, Dave?
Not until I get further into the tape. I've tried to spot check several plays throughout the game here. Man, they just missed one to MVS for a touchdown in this game. Once again, the fact that they were still able to compile 6 explosive plays in total, despite only completing 2 of 7 attempts more than 16 yards down the field. Really says a lot about this offense. And man, once again, the last 3 games, Aaron Rodgers totally in control. It's good to see this explosive play total go up over the last several games as well too. And remember, this is an offense that, as you stated, especially when a run. I mean, it's been hard for this offense to get 10+ yard runs, let alone 20. And they're starting to do that now. So this offensive line really coming together at the running game, really coming together at this point. And, you want to be peaking at the right time. And this offense certainly seems to be right now.
Yeah, that's your goal. Stack wins, peak this time of year, and Pittsburgh is doing both. There's no question about that. My last comment or point, Dave, and you shared this earlier today. It's one of those fun Easter eggs on the All-22 after one of the Warren long touchdown runs. You had the duo barrel roll from, what was it, McCormick and Fautanu, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so just you see those guys juiced and amped up, and that was that the first or the second run for Warren?
That was the first one. And
Okay.
there's no good view to see whether they may have done it on the second one too, but you don't see it on the all 22, I don't think.
I just asked that, and I kind of thought it might have been the first one because sometimes I think run blocking is a feeling, a confidence factor, and you start feeling it, you start getting juiced, and it starts snowballing in a really positive way once you start busting off big runs. We've kind of seen that work in Pittsburgh's favor and also against Pittsburgh when other teams have run the ball well on the Steelers throughout the season, and you kind of see those guys really start to feel it, start getting amped up and juiced and having fun, and it's no surprise that it didn't take much longer for the next 45-yard run by Warren just a literal couple minutes after that.
Yeah, look, this offensive line's got a lot of confidence right now. Once again, you're doing it without Isaac Say. You did it without Isaac Sayabalo in there, and you even were able to do it with Andres Pete in there at left guard. And it's hard. It's got to be hard for a guy to come in and out of games like that. And not be in any kind of rhythm like that when you're specifically wanting to do some of the jumbo stuff. So once again, I think it's a major plus that they're able to still utilize their jumbo package with Spencer Anderson as an eligible, despite him technically being your starting left guard. So I just a preparedness overall, and it's just a really confident up front unit, and hopefully that continues moving forward. And Dylan, I haven't gone through all the tape, and look, it wasn't perfect by Dylan for Dylan Cook in this game overall, but my initial thoughts was he played a good game, and yeah, they gave him a little bit of help. They have Gainwell out there trying to chip, and Freiermuth and a couple of these tight, but I don't think they probably gave him any more help than maybe they did in his first start against the Dolphins a week ago there. So without a doubt, Dylan Cook should be your left tackle moving forward right now, and Mike Thomas made sure to praise him after I think these last two games overall. So, and you're on the fourth. How many teams can say that about having to get to their fourth left tackle this late in the season and have the results that they have out of a guy like that?
Very few, for sure. And to do that, not only just in general, but the circumstance, you're on the road, you're in a closed, roofed environment. It's super loud in there. You're on a silent count. You're rotating people. You got a four-string left tackle. You're mixing and matching left guards. And how many offensive line penalties were there in this game, Dave? How many operational issues happened? There were some issues in terms of alignment and getting plays in, and Rodgers had to burn a couple timeouts. But in terms of the penalty aspect, how many were noted in this one?
Let's see. On the offensive side of football, you had, let me see here. You had the offensive pass interference on DK Metcalf. That was one. You had the block in the back by Johnny Smith. You did have Spencer Anderson line up off sides on a 1st and 2 from the Detroit 2. And
I believe that's it.
let me see. Oh, you had the Darnell Washington OPI.
Yeah, I'm talking just offensive line,
Oh,
though. I mean, in
okay.
terms of the
Yeah.
offensive line issues, you had Anderson, the one mistake, and that was critical. That can't happen, obviously. But beyond that, in terms of no false starts and holding calls from the offensive line for those guys to play really clean, I think is. And they play clean all year, too. This is not just a one-off or even just a moment in time during the win streak. They have been a really clean unit throughout the season, but now you're relying on mixing and matching and relying on backups. It's late in the year. You're fatigued. You're more tired. You're more prone to making those mental mistakes. You're in a hostile environment where it's easier for those things to occur, and it didn't happen, and that should be commended.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just the one on the offensive line to Spencer Anderson.
All right, Dave, let's flip over to the Steelers defense. And while Jared Goff threw for 364 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the stat line may look pretty sterling on paper, he was pretty much in his shell for the first 3 quarters in this one. And no run game at all. Already spoke about how great the run defense was. We'll, of course, continue to talk about it, but I think Pittsburgh makes this Lions offense that was number 1 in the NFL, averaging over 30 points per game, had been scoring 34 plus in each of their last three, really made these guys look like mere mortals.
Yeah, they did, and you start with the running game, obviously, and I think the Lions in the first half ran 33 offensive plays, and they had, I think, 10 true runs to the running backs during that time, and those gained 10 runs, gained 19 yards. You saw Jack Sawyer and Alex Highsmith with some key either tackles for no gain or loss early in the first half. Though that played huge, and these guys were beating blocks too. They quick off the line in those situations there, and yeah, you shut down that running game early, and the Lions did seem to try to get away from it a little earlier than I thought they should for sure, and you know for them to limit this running game to what, net 15 rushing yards of Sonic and Knuckles like that, and neither of those two guys being injured in the game. Now, look, it was a little bit of a surprise when the inactives came out there that the Lions starting center, who was that?
Graham Glasgow.
Yeah, Glasgow was inactive, and they 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 somehow got to their three different centers, I think, in this game. Did they not?
I wasn't really focusing on who they were playing. I wasn't even sure exactly in the moment who their starting center was because they had some backups that were hurt too. So it really was a mess up front for Detroit in this one.
Right. And the Steelers took advantage of that once again. Nobody cares about your problems, and the Steelers certainly didn't. And they took advantage of that for the most part in the interior portion of that line and on the edge too with the outside linebackers. I thought, Sawyer played a very for a first start and to play the amount of snaps that he played. I thought he played a very good game overall. And yeah, it all starts with shutting down that running game overall, and then getting off the field on third downs. And the Lions were 2 of 8 on third downs in the first half, and that played a large part in this game going to halftime, 10-10. And you get the fourth down stop down on the Lions' first deep drive of the game. As we mentioned at the start of the show, that show up as a turnover, but or a takeaway, but it should, because that was obviously a key point to the game there. And yeah, look, I mean, you're only going to hold down that offense so much, but for the most part, I thought they did well tackling the catch. The Lions dropped a couple of passes in this game, which obviously benefited the Steelers in this. But yeah, I mean, you and look, that touchdown from Goff to Slaw. I mean, how do you defend that, man? That was a great throw, great catch against that defense there in that situation there. But you got the early sack from Keanu Benton, which helped. Cameron Hayward, had one. And then obviously the Duggar safety, came at a key point in this game as well too. So they continually made plays at the key portion of games on down the distances, and it goes without saying late in the game there on those final few plays there that won the ball game.
You always go into a game trying to identify the biggest threats and how you minimize the other team's star players. And that was Jahmyr Gibbs. That was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those are kind of the top two guys. Jameson Williams, I would put him also in that category. And you really did limit those guys in a lot of meaningful ways. Gibbs, 7 carries, 2 yards, made some plays as a receiver, but overall, he certainly had much bigger games than the one he had yesterday. St. Brown, pretty quiet, 4 catches for 54 yards. Jameson Williams, 5 for 70. You were forcing other guys to step up, like Ferkser, the tight end, another backup tight end, Zystra. Khalif Raymond did have the touchdown, beat Asante Samuel Jr., but you'd rather let those guys go make plays than the star player. That's kind of where it starts for me. Montgomery, just 4 carries, 14 yards in this one. So I think Pittsburgh did a great job of forcing the Lions, other guys to have to step up and make plays. And they're not used to doing that. The Lions are good about getting their guys isolated, getting them one-on-one, getting them in favorable situations for Goff to deliver them the football, and nothing really came easy for them. And I think Pittsburgh's defense made life hard throughout that game.
Yeah, I think those running backs, as we stated, 10 rushing attempts in the first half for Montgomery and Gibbs, and I think they ended up combined 11 in the game. So they had one second half run between Gibbs and Montgomery.
And part of that, to be fair, even though I think they still should have run the ball more, was they didn't have the ball in the third quarter. They had like the
Right.
one drive, they lost 3 yards, and that was all she
-3.
wrote. And so Pittsburgh has been dominant, not even just good, but dominant in the third quarter these past 2 games. Miami had negative 20 yards in the third quarter last Monday. Detroit has -3, just the one drive yesterday. And so the teams just simply don't have the football. Pittsburgh is possessing the football at a rate they just simply have not been doing the entire season. Remember, I kept talking about it the first 11 weeks. Pittsburgh has not won the snap count because I charted every single week. They only won time of possession once, I think, that year over that first 11 weeks in the Browns game in week number 6. And in the last 2 games, Pittsburgh has been really dominant in time of possession. Now, the snap count ended up being pretty much even in this one, 70 for Pittsburgh, 69 for Detroit per ESPN. But in time of possession, Pittsburgh had the ball for 34 minutes and 6 seconds in this game. And so they're playing a different style of ball control offense they had not been playing the entire season, and that's been big.
And that time of possession came even with 3 double explosive plays. And how many
Right.
times have we talked about, well, it's okay to not possess the football for X amount of time if you're get those long touchdowns. Well, they got the long touchdowns and they possessed the ball. So it wasn't like those big plays were coming early in drives. They were actually getting to a point possessing the football ahead of those as well too. So time of possession, good to see them win it that lopsided like that by about 9 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm looking at the play-by-play. Their drives were not long. I think only one drive Pittsburgh had was longer than 4 minutes. I mean, they had an 11-play drive that went a minute 53 on the Gainwell touchdown because it was 2 minute and they're hurrying up and using timeouts and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, there weren't any individual drives. They had one for almost 10 minutes. That was the big one. I think in the third quarter thereabouts that bled into the fourth quarter potentially too. But it was a lot of the defense making plays, getting stops, getting the ball back, and that was also a big reason. We always talk about time of possession as a team unit stat. It's not just offense, it's not just defense. It's every unit coming together to do their job, and both sides doing their job.
Yeah, the Steelers had one less possession technically in this game as well too. I think they only had 10 possessions versus the Lions had 11. Now, obviously, that got lopsided by the one because the Lions got the extra one. The safety and all like that helped play a big part in that. But the Lions had the extra possession in this game.
Right. So Pittsburgh to still win time of possession convincingly. So it was really impressive. Jack Sawyer stepping up his first start. He played well. Getting that early forced fumble, making a goal line tackle off the edge unblocked. Alex Highsmith continues to put on elite tape against the run. I'm definitely going to do a film room on him, not just from this game, but the last couple weeks about his great run defense, getting some pressure too on the Hayward sack. Highsmith went off the edge, forced Goff to step up right into Hayward's lap. That's exactly where you want it to be. As you said, Benton, the early sack in this one, the interior defensive line making more plays, getting more pressure. Hayward has sacks in back-to-back weeks. Benton has, 5.5 on the season after having just 2 in his first 2 seasons combined, so a big change there. Of course, you get Harmon back, and that's big in this one. Y.A. Black dropping into coverage, almost a big man interception. You get him getting some plays in this one, flipping off whoever he was flipping off in this one, spreading some holiday cheer. So, yeah, your defensive line feels like it's really starting to fire too, and took advantage of a Lions team that had some backups in.
Yeah, look, we talk about the takeaways early in the show there. Chuck Clark had a chance for 3 picks in this game?
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't make any of those there. And the Steelers turned the football over on deep in the Lions end on a Darnell Washington strip, and they were able to overcome that as well too. So This offense was able to move the ball and possess it. That was a key point of this game.
A secondary play, Joey Porter Jr. continues to have a great string of ball. Played clean in this one. Played St. Brown tight multiple breakups in this game. So I think we've talked about it. He's not gotten the credit that he deserves because the penalties have in some ways overshadowed that. But he's played some really tight man-to-man coverage. A big reason why St. Brown had a pretty quiet day.
Mm-hmm. Look, we went into the season and even got to the midpoint of the season wondering about Joey Porter Jr. and Keanu Benton, right? And those guys have come on in the second half of the season.
Yeah, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, we'll have the offseason to discuss it. We talk about offseason extensions. All those guys that were in question may now be on the table, right? Herbig, Washington, Benton, and Porter. We'll see if they all get it and what will happen in the next couple of weeks, but those guys are certainly all candidates.
Kenneth Gainwell, too.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying from my exact class, but yeah, I mean Gainwell, yeah, for sure. I mean that price tag keeps going up though week by week, and I think that contract extension will be very interesting to watch in the offseason for Kenny G.
Absolutely. All right. What about some? You can't talk about this game with some key penalties. I don't think. Right. Anything else to add about the defense? What about probably
Mhm.
the undersung play in this game was going back through the TV tape last night. It was one of those ones where I didn't catch it really live, the importance of it, but definitely did late in the game. There was the play by who was it? Patrick Queen, 2nd and 10 from the Steelers 12-yard line, 45 seconds left. Jared Goff pass short left to Slaw. Patrick Queen got him down at the 1-yard line. If Patrick Queen doesn't make that tackle like that, that goes into the end zone, obviously, and we're probably talking about a Steelers loss.
Yeah, I got to watch that one again, but I know that was him coming across the field. And so those are the effort plays that you have to make, and you never know what's going to end up being kind of the difference in this one. If that's a touchdown there, then Pittsburgh probably ends up losing this game. We'll never know exactly for sure the outcome, but you got to have those blades of grass to defend. And Queen did. So he's been playing some good football. You got some good effort players and some good athletes to cover ground in a hurry, and Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen, no question.
You every week aren't you the one that does the forgotten play?
Yeah, that may be this week's choice. I've
All
not
right.
gotten a chance to think about it, but that certainly would be a very worthy candidate.
All right, go back and watch that. I like to submit that as my
Okay.
candidate for that play. All right, the offensive pass interference penalties on both Darnell Washington and who was the late one on before the final one.
Are you talking on Pittsburgh
To,
or
to
on Detroit?
no one each. Not counting the final play of the game, but Darnell Washington that
Yeah, there was
no
the one on Tesla, the one
right.
on Darnell. That's what you're talking about.
Right. What did you think about both those calls?
I think the first one on Darnell is clean to me. They're running mesh there. And so you're getting that natural pick. I think the issue, and I tweeted about it, is when your tight end is a house, the way that he's able to knock people down just on even what I think would still be considered incidental contact looks so egregious, the refs are more likely to call it because he's such a big guy just kind of running people over as they, go shoulder to shoulder with him. And so I think it almost hurts you in a sense because the refs are more likely to call it than if it was a smaller tight end that kind of bumps him and he doesn't fall down. He just kind of stumbles and has to kind of get around it and falls a step behind. So I think it's kind of a bad influence that almost hurts you in a sense when you run those mesh concepts. But I thought it was clean. But I know the outcome and the way that DB fell made it look as bad as it did.
All right. What about the one on Tesla
Yeah, I don't
that
know if
that
I've
no, nullified the St. Brown touchdown?
I I was mad because there was a play earlier in the game where I think they should have called a pick on it and they didn't. So I was glad Pittsburgh got that one again. They've been running a lot of those rub routes down in the red zone that are so common. So yeah, that was more than a yard downfield, clear, traffic, clear obstruction on that one. So yeah, I thought that was good.
Rex Ryan was adamant this morning that the one on Tesla, I think, shouldn't have been called. And I sort of agree with him. I think both of them really were bogus. I didn't think either one of them really should have been called a penalty there. And if that's the case, they all set because they were both touchdowns on each play there. So I didn't like the OPI on either Washington or Tesla there. Now we'll go back and watch those half a dozen times each. Maybe we can revisit that on Wednesday. What about the final play of the game?
Yeah, to me, this really shouldn't be much controversy about it. I'm not really sure what the controversy even is stemming from. It's a clear push off by St. Brown on Ramsey, and everything after that becomes moot. So it's OPI all day. I mean, to me, there's really not even much to talk about.
Right. I guess the only and then too that play should have been blown dead if we're being honest, because everybody quit on the Steelers side. Everybody thought it, and it's hard to tell whether or not on TV if there was a whistle or not. Be
Yeah,
interested.
but that's all immaterial
Right.
once you have the
It's all
OPI.
moot. Right. Right. I guess the only thing is if it's OPI, should you know and I guess because it's immaterial after that because the play wasn't blown dead, and it's probably good for the Steelers that it wasn't, because would the Lions have gotten one more crack with the penalty tacked on, would say about 3 or 4 seconds left.
Yeah, we'll never know exactly what the ruling was. I mean, I think you would have had a strong case for forward progress stopped in that moment, but again, you have clear OPI. I'm not even sure if anyone's even debating if that was OPI or
Right.
not. It was an obvious push off by St. Brown, and so after nothing even matters after that. It took a while to sort out, and I'm okay with it taking a while. It's a crazy play.
Did
Let's
you think
talk
they were going
about
to
it.
get it wrong?
I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what was
I
going
didn't
on.
know
It was
what to
just
think
the
either.
last couple of this game was just insane chaos, and I just was kind of along for the ride and just kind of almost an out of body experience, just trying to watch it and just trying to hang on. So I didn't know exactly how it would go. You didn't get a lot of good replays, I don't think, during that time either, which was frustrating too. And so I was trying to get the CBS broadcast to give me a little more information on what was happening. But yeah, I'm okay with it taking some time to sort out and have a discussion and make sure we get this thing right. And they got it right, and I'm good with all that.
All right. I mean, at least they got it right at the end. What'd you think about the defensive pass interference on Duggar on a 4th and 2?
That it was a late flag. It's the right call though. Duggar got there early. It's clear contact before the ball gets there. It's the right call.
All right. I after going back and looking at the all 22, I would agree with that. And I guess the other one that I had was, what about the catch that they reviewed by I thought it was a 4th down play, wasn't it, by the backup tight end?
You give me some context of when
Where
this
they
was.
looked to see whether or not the ball moved at the end. When
Oh, the
was
3rd
that?
and 13. Oh, before the 4th and 2 Duggar pass interference. Yeah, that one's close. I think it's one of those, whatever the call was initially is going to stand, and so I'm okay with that one standing. I
All
think
right,
that's fair.
I thought there was enough there to with that ball moving that should have been incomplete. That would have set up a 4th and 13 instead of a 4th and
Sure.
2. And then obviously on that 4th and 2 was the DPI on Duggar there.
It was frustrating because the Duggar DPI, then the Highsmith trip on back-to-back plays. You're just racking up 15-yard penalties with almost no time coming off the clock either, getting them in the range. I think both of those were the correct calls. Highsmith a trip. It's just not sure what Highsmith is thinking there, if it's instinct or whatever it was. Yeah, you had this guy almost dead to rights on the sack, and you get the trip instead. So that was unfortunate. But Pittsburgh made the stops when it counted.
Yeah, I thought after that trip too, I was negative Nelly at that. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
super negative Nelly at that point. I thought, yep, we're going to be talking about a loss that the Steelers should have had one there. Shame on
Yeah.
me.
Well, it's an understandable reaction. All right, Dave. Anything else? Special teams here, quickly. I thought Waitman punted well. Coverage units did a decent job overall. Even kick return units for Pittsburgh were okay. You had the miss by Boswell from 37 yards. Looked like a low snap from the long snapper Christian Kuntz. We talked about his snapping issues. He's been snapping
did.
low. I know he's got the knee issue, but we're all banged up right now. He was cleared to play in this one. It just got to be better. I think Kuntz has struggled, not even just in the clips that I've shown in the past and in this game. I think throughout the season, I kind of quietly noticed that his snapping has not been consistent and where it has been in seasons past. And it was been hurt. He got hurt in the preseason finale, and he came back. And kudos to him. He's a tough dude, but it's a very there's no margin for error with a snapper. You got to do the job perfectly every single time. That's the standard, and he's falling pretty well short of that.
Let's see. He did have a nice down the field tackle though on a punt. Coots did, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I doubt you're going to get a Christmas card from Christian Coots this year.
Yeah, his coverage has been good, and I even noted that in the one tweet I had a couple days ago. But the job of the snapper, first and foremost, is to snap the ball, and coverage and tackling is all kind of it's important, but it's more of a bonus than it is the primary job. And so, will they consider making a change at snapper? It's late in the season. You don't love to do it then, but I think it's something you certainly have to consider.
Peyton Wilson, 3 special teams tackles in this game. Skoranek had 1. Kuntz had 1. Bruner had 3 assisted special teams tackles. Holcomb had 1 assist. Peppers had 1 assist. And Jeremiah Moon, who's known for his special teams play, had an assist on special teams in this game.
I did have some special teams penalties that are unacceptable. Skoranek, the running out of bounds, which I did not realize was an unsportsmanlike conduct. I knew the penalty. I didn't know it was 15 yards though for running out of bounds, not getting back in bounds on your own volition. You had Asante Samuel with a holding call that knocked back a punt 10 more yards, and so there's some special teams sloppiness that will have to get cleaned up.
During the game, during that one, they had the Lions backed up key portion of the game. You're thinking, man, you're going to get great field position out of this, and their punter not only boomed the punt, but you had the penalty by Samuel on that one as well too. And you go from a situation where you thought you're going to be able to flip the field in your side. Or in your favor, and then you start, kind of deepish in your own end after that. I kind of wonder if we'd be circling that one or not.
Yeah, Pittsburgh just has to do a better job in those kind of field position type of moments and be able to come out on top of those situations.
What did they do on that ensuing possession after that? Where was the Samuel?
I'm not sure.
Let me see. Did they end up?
They punted, 3-and-out punt.
Okay, 3-and-out then.
Yeah,
okay.
So got to work on that for sure. All right, Dave, anything else from this game from an on-field perspective that we should talk about?
No, we'll talk plenty more about it on the Wednesday show after we go through the All-22, but I think we covered this one pretty good here as far as TV tape and limited All-22.
And apologies, still trying to get over the illness. The wind certainly a little chicken soup for the soul. They're feeling better, but the cough's still staying a little bit, so that may be why my voice sounds even worse than usual. Dave, you want to talk about the playoff situation, the DK Metcalf situation. Which situation do you want to start with?
Let's get the elephant in the room out there in the DK Metcalf situation there.
All right, bizarre moment taking place in the first half of Sunday's game. CBS broadcast crew capturing an altercation between DK Metcalf and what appeared to be a Detroit Lions fan. Metcalf had walked over to the front row behind the team's bench, and there was some conversation between Metcalf and the fan, and then you saw Metcalf, what appeared to be on first angle, a punch tore from Metcalf to the fan. On another angle, looked more like he was just trying to grab the player, or the fan, and either grab his shirt or pull him or something to that effect. There was no penalty on the play. Of course, the refs did not see it, but we're certainly under the belief there's going to be some sort of discipline. The NFL will subject him to, what will that be? A suspension, a fine? We shall see. But a very unusual moment there between Metcalf and the fan. The fan spoke to the Detroit Free Press and just said he called him by his quote-unquote government name, his full name, not just DK. Chad Johnson on the Nightcap podcast on really technically Monday morning, saying he spoke with DK Metcalf, and Metcalf said the fan called him the N-word and his mom the C-word. And so that's the stories of both parties in that one. But again, a very unusual situation between Metcalf and that fan, Dave.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for sure. And will we ever know unless a third party comes forward? Right now, it's kind of a he said, she said type situation. Obviously, there were several people around in that vicinity as well, too. Be interesting to see if any of those come forward. Not that it matters in the grand scheme of things. He's got to have more composure and just don't even go. Why are you even going over there, dude? And if we're going, in the past, we obviously land blasted George Pickens for some of his actions outside of the lines and sometimes inside the lines, then we got to make sure we do the same for Metcalf. He cannot put himself in a situation there. I know Mike Tomlin was asked after DK Metcalf hauled ass after the game, did not talk to the media about it. Mike Tomlin says he heard about it, did not see it, had not had a chance to talk to DK about that. I'm sure that'll be revisited when Mike Tomlin addresses the media on Tuesday there. Uh, will I be surprised if he gets a one-game suspension? No, I won't. Who was it? Dan Graziano or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He certainly got up on his pulpit and said Mike Tomlin should have benched DK the rest of the game there because he wasn't thrown out, blah, blah, blah. But fact of the matter is you just can't let that stuff happen. You got to, you can't let fans get under your skin, and you certainly have no business going over there to the stands during the game either and interacting. Even if somebody wants to give you a high, to me, keep your concentration on the field.
Sure.
Leave the other stuff after the game. So it was really unfortunate. Something that's going to be discussed, I'm sure, the next several days here, and we'll just have to wait and see. I think he'll be lucky to only get a fine out of this overall, and it's a good thing that that the Steelers have all these veteran wide receivers and the extra body, and you can put Rome. Look, you're gonna. Regardless, in any NFL game, not having DK Metcalf is a huge loss. But fortunately, maybe this is something that the Steelers will be able to overcome if indeed DK Metcalf gets a one-game suspension here. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. I won't be surprised either way, and he's got to be smarter than that. And this isn't the first time that we've talked about, him kind of having issues on the field.
According to CBS Sports sideline reporter Tracy Wolfson, whenever that incident was first broadcast, she had reported that the fan had appeared to be holding a DK Metcalf jersey or photo or some sort of Steelers Metcalf apparel. And so I don't know if there's a situation where Metcalf thought it was a friendly fan wanting an autograph or some sort of interaction. Now, to your point, I agree. Regardless of the fan's intent, don't go over and talk to the fans mid-game, pre-game, post-game, during the game. You just don't even have that ever become a thought or a possibility or an action, even if it is under the best intentions. But that might have been the reason why Metcalf walked over there in the first place. Just to understand what he was even doing over there is kind of just important context. Now, there's something that just came in just literal minutes
Right
ago
now.
from Tom Pelissero. He says, quote, Steelers wide receiver DK Metcalf had a history with a Lions fan he confronted Sunday. Metcalf reported the same fan the Seahawks security last season while playing for Seattle. Sources say the NFL is reviewing the incident for potential discipline. And so there appears to be a literal history between these two individuals, Metcalf and that fan. I don't know if Metcalf recognized that fan and then went over because of that, or if he thought it was somebody else, maybe a Steelers fan or somebody wanting an autograph. We just don't know a lot of the situation right now. It's certainly no surprise to hear that the fan did more than just call Metcalf by his, quote, government name. We knew there's no way that that alone would be triggering Metcalf, and so we knew there was going to be more to this story. It's unfortunate, but not surprising that the fan reportedly, per Metcalf, per Chad Johnson, called him these slurs and all these terrible names, but you still can't touch the fans. You have to walk away, call security, get him kicked out, whatever, but you can't put yourself in that situation where you're going to harm yourself and harm your teammates potentially by being possibly subject to a suspension. So I think a suspension's on the table. That's my expectation of what the outcome will be. We'll see if that's the case or not. We should know probably by today for clarity on his situation going into Week 17, give him time for an appeal if he wants to, for the appeal to be heard. Usually these things get moved along pretty quickly, but no matter what the fan said, awful as it may be, you just can't do that if you're Metcalf.
Yeah, Tom Pelissero goes on to report a source close to Metcalf says the fan who identified himself to the Detroit Free Press as Ryan Kennedy called Metcalf's mom a derogatory word and called Metcalf something we both know you don't call a black man. All right. So, quote unquote. The fan claims Metcalf was upset about being called his full legal name, all that kind of Ocho Cinco said during his show with Shannon Sharp last night. So, yeah, I mean, once again, it's unfortunate, but you can't put yourself in that position there. You have to report it to security or whatever. And even though if you had a history with that guy, you need to alert somebody. But the last thing you need to do is go over there and confront during a game or after a game for that matter. There, you got to turn the other cheek there. So I'm with you. I think we'll learn pretty quick, potentially by this afternoon, what the initial hand down is from the league. And I imagine DK Metcalf will appeal it. And then he'll quickly get a hearing, and we'll find out whether or not they'll have him for the Week 17 game against the Browns.
I guess the best thing you could say is this game hopefully won't mean as much as we thought it might mean Week 17, where if the Ravens lose this game, then it'll mean nothing for Pittsburgh effectively, and Metcalf serves the suspension and be good to go for the playoffs. But yeah, obviously just bad moment all around. I still people have tried to compare Pickens and Metcalf as one and the same. I still reject that comparison and still continue to do so even after this moment. I think there's a lot of big differences between the two guys. Metcalf's been a much better teammate, hasn't been late to practices, hasn't done some of the unprofessional things that Pickens has, but this is obviously a really bad look. It's just something that Metcalf can't do no matter what a fan is saying to you, and he'll pay the price for it one way or the other.
Right.
All right, Dave, on a happier note, Pittsburgh's playoff situation, that path is looking better and clearer than ever, with the Steelers beating Detroit last night and then the Ravens blowing a lead to New England in the nightcap. And so you know the scenarios better than I do, Dave. Just can you give us the kind of most simple, likely path to the playoffs, kind of putting aside ties for the moment?
I'm not going to do that.
Okay. All right. Then give me the scenarios. How does Pittsburgh make the playoffs? How do they clinch the AFC North?
All right. First and foremost, the Ravens play the Packers on Saturday. Interesting how all this stuff ends up playing out here. The Ravens must beat the Packers, plain and simple, to have an initial shot of hanging around. So if they tie the Packers or if they lose to the Packers, the Steelers get the AFC North. All right. Now, if the Ravens win and beat the Packers, the Steelers against the Browns need a win or a tie against the Browns, and they are in that way. That's the simplest way, I think, to discuss the Week 16 scenario. So if the Ravens lose or tie to the Packers, the Steelers game against the Browns essentially means nothing other than maybe potential seeding. Now, the crazy thing is the Steelers still have a 1-point-something% chance at the number 3 seed. However, that door could close if the Texans beat the Chargers on Saturday as well too. So if the Ravens tie or lose to the Packers and the Texans lose to the Chargers, the Steelers have to decide, do they still want to go after that number 3 seed? Because the number 3 seed, that basically I think the Jaguars and the Texans would have to lose their final 2 games each, and the Steelers win their final 2 for the Steelers to be able to get the number 3 seed. That seems highly, highly impossible.
And the Texans play the Chargers and Colts, and the Jags play the Colts and the Titans to end the season.
Right. So you could technically get into a situation depending on what the Ravens do. And oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson looked in horrible shape after that game. He had to leave the game against the Patriots after getting kneed in the back, and he got a pain shot. And boy, you gotta. I I don't like to have compassion for the enemy a lot of times, but that guy looked like he was in a lot of pain talking to reporters after that game last night. And he's got a short week to try to get ready for this game against the Packers. And oh, by the way, that game's in Green Bay, and Packers are still have a lot to play for at this point here. So,
Of course, they may be on their backup quarterback too, which would love in the
right,
concussion protocol.
right. You got that aspect of it as well too. So, a loss or a tie by the Ravens against the Packers on Saturday eliminates them. And should they beat the Packers, the Steelers need a win or a tie against the Browns for the division. Now, if the Ravens win and the Steelers lose to the Browns, well, then obviously the Steelers would need either a win or a tie against the Ravens in week 18 to secure the division.
Got it. All right. Thank you for the explainer there. So, if the Ravens lose and the Texans win, Pittsburgh has nothing to play for from a seeding playoff standpoint, the final two games, correct?
That would be correct. They would be locked into the fourth seed, regardless of what happens against the Browns and the Ravens in the finale.
And they would host the 5 seed for wild card weekend. So it would make for a very interesting calculation of Pittsburgh's plan. I'm going to imagine Pittsburgh's going to play their starters to some large degree, no matter what, in this Browns game, because that's how you're going to be working throughout the week. You're going to work under the assumption we're going to play our starters, and so then have to transition the backups last second. 24 hours less than before kickoff probably won't be the outcome. Week 18 may be a different story in terms of resting people or not, but very interesting, and what a favorable situation. Pittsburgh with a great chance to win the AFC North for the first time since 2020. And to me, Dave, the question really becomes a lot about who's going to be the 5 seed, because in all likelihood, Pittsburgh will be the 4 seed, will be hosting the 5 seed for the playoffs. And right now, the favorite for that is Buffalo, but that's still a pretty wide open race.
Yeah, it is. I guess technically, let's look at the standings here, the playoff seedings and all like that. I suppose, I guess there's a chance even Houston could crawl into, or Jacksonville for that matter. It's not settled yet, right? I know
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It could go. In other words, you obviously should treat the game well. We should do this or do that because of who we might play.
Yeah, this is not about rooting.
Yeah, first and foremost, you got to probably take, if Baltimore wins, you got to take care of your own business against Cleveland. And then assuming you're locked into that fourth seed entering week 18 and don't have a minute prayer of getting the number 3 seed, then I think obviously you try to rest whoever you can rest for the finale against Baltimore at that point. And then you let whoever gets the 5 seed get the 5 seed, obviously, at that point here. Here's the thing. It lessens the load on having a guy like TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, hopefully, against this game against Cleveland, although we've seen it time any given Sunday, right? Especially playing a defense like the Browns, and this is going to be the Browns Super Bowl per se. They would love nothing better than to send the Steelers into week 18 still fighting for their playoff lives there.
And they just took Buffalo to the brink yesterday, too.
Right. And you got a quarterback still that you don't know a lot about, maybe, is Shadur Sanders, and anything can happen there. So first and foremost, just get that number 4 seed at least locked away. I would imagine, like you said, you do all that prep. Now, look, you might get yourself in a situation where you pull some of the. I don't think we're going to see Watt against Cleveland first and foremost. I That to me would be a surprise, even though the report was, I think, that Watt's supposed to resume practicing in some capacity this week. But I would be shocked if we see Watt against Cleveland, and especially if the game ends up the Steelers have the division locked by that point. I just don't think you're going to see him. Herbig could probably use another game with that hamstring. You obviously will have to see what happens with James Pierre, Isaac Seumalo, groin injury for Brandin Echols. That sounds like he's already going to be in question for that game as well too. And then ideally you get to rest as many people as you want in that finale against the Ravens as well. So they're in a lot better position going into week 17 than I thought they would be starting this week. And I'd much rather be in this position wondering about who I might be able to rest in week 17, maybe or maybe not. But this team's sitting in a great position, and I'm sure Mike Tomlin will be asked about scenarios if you get locked up the division before taking the field on Sunday. What will you do? And he's probably not going to tip his hand.
I told you on December 1st, right after the Bills game, the last two games of the season for Pittsburgh might be meaningless. You would have had a mind to say, well, Pittsburgh, the wheels fell off. They were eliminated. The games mean nothing. And yet the last two games may mean nothing because Pittsburgh has locked up the 4th seed and won the AFC North. It's just proof of how crazy the NFL season can turn on its head. I imagine that you're going to play a bulk of your starters in this game, even if you wake up Sunday and there's nothing to play for because things broke in your favor based on what transpires throughout Saturday. Typically, teams don't rest starters in 2 games before the playoffs. It's too much of a layoff over time, and you want to be good to go. So would you rest any injured players and be very careful with them? Absolutely. Will you potentially pull some guys or limit reps throughout that game against Cleveland? Yes. Will you rest starters for week 18 against Baltimore? In all likelihood, yes. But you probably won't have a complete benching of all your starters for that game. For the 5 seed, just looking at one outlet, the site that I like to use, playoffstatus.com, these are the percentages of the teams with a chance for the 5 seed. Denver, 9%, New England, 13%, Jacksonville, 2%, the Chargers, 16%, Buffalo, 53%, and Houston, 7%. So Buffalo, the highest chance at 53%, the majority, followed next closest by the Chargers, 16%, and then New England at 13% as that AFC East battle still rages on. So that's kind of where things stand right now. That's kind of what I'm watching for the most. I'm not rooting for any particular outcome because be careful what you wish for, but that's kind of the next biggest question in my mind when it comes to Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
And who is the most dominant team in the AFC right now? Really, who is, if you were to put your money, if you were to bet your house, which you probably wouldn't do in this situation, obviously, but it really is. It's wide open on the AFC side. I mean, you could make an argument for any team of the top 7 right now of getting hot during the playoffs and going to the Super Bowl. Quite honestly, you could.
Could you argue that's Pittsburgh?
You could the way they have played in the last 3 games with an experienced quarterback, the way they ran the ball, the way basically the last 3 game sample size, you could make a legitimate argument based on the way the rest of the AFC is that I'll tell you this, you just can't say, well, there's 0 chance the Steelers could run through this thing.
I agree. You get hot, you play ball late, you get healthy. If you get to rest your guys and be healthy because of that, I mean, those are all huge factors. This AFC is completely open. Is Pittsburgh the best team in the AFC right now? No. Are they even top 3 if you had to rank them? I doubt it, but it's wide open, as you said. You get in, you're having a home playoff game, and give yourself a really good chance. So, yeah, who is the best team in the AFC right now? The answer is both yes and no, because you could make a case for any of these clubs pretty much. New England continues to keep rolling. Denver's got a great defense. Jacksonville's playing some really good ball right now. Buffalo has Josh Allen. Houston's defense is elite. The Chargers are a physical bunch. And Pittsburgh's playing their best football of the season. So it's really, really fun.
Right. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, man, if Steelers get in this thing, they're gonna run it, all the way, to at least the AFC Championship game," but I'm also not gonna tell you that it's impossible right now either, at this point, and I damn sure wouldn't have said that, after the loss to Buffalo.
Yeah, it has a 2023 vibe, but your season kinda has some big twists and turns. You were, what, 7-4, then 7-7, then you run the table. It's kinda that similar vibe, but this team, I think, feels stronger than that 2023 bunch.
Once again, I can't believe, I mean, that's why you gotta let these things play out, man. Uh
Yeah, it's why we don't call for firing of people mid-season and blow everything up and tank and all that kinda stuff because it looks pretty silly right now.
How big is it? What about Adam Thielen and the contributions he's making to it? We talked about Scotty Miller and what he did in this game, but man, is Adam Thielen been a fit or what?
Like a glove as a blocker. I thought he was a zone killer. Excuse me, suppressing a cough here, but yeah, I think Thielen has been exactly what Pittsburgh was looking for. You've seen this offense continue to be dialed in. You talk about Scotty Miller, a veteran. Rodgers had the sarcastic joke on that third down toe tap that Miller had. He said to Miller after the play, "Thank God we had all those reps together, you and I, for that moment." They had 0 reps together. First time they'd run that route together because Miller's been a backup and he's subbing in because Austin's hurt, and just guys making plays, dudes making plays in big time moments, veterans stepping up, and Pittsburgh has gotten some great contributions from their veterans.
Yeah, and once again, singing, I can't believe the season that Kenneth Gain. I said this coming out of that game last week. I can't believe the impact Kenneth Gainwell has had on this team. He now has 911 total yards from scrimmage. Heading into this final 2 weeks, Jalen Warren has 1,128 total yards from scrimmage. Gainwell obviously leads the team in receptions right now. Just incredible. I never would have dreamed that he would have had the impact that he has had, and that catch was just absolutely phenomenal. Aaron Rodgers just continues to be a huge Kenneth Gainwell fan. You see the shot from Steelers on their Twitter feed of Aaron Rodgers' arm around Gainwell after the game, walking through the tunnel and all like that. I just unbelievable signing of Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, I mean it's a career year for him. It's a great value add. Is it one of the most surprising seasons a Steeler has ever had? I'm not even sure what else would qualify, but it has to be up there.
I mean, you go back to Elliott, right, last year and all, but I mean, this guy, the impact that he's had on this offense and the plays that he's made, just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal, and for the
I,
price that they got him for.
I think in some ways Gainwell might be a little more surprising because Elliott, you kind of saw the fit starter, strong safety. You could kind of see that one a little more than Gainwell. It was kind of like, okay, how exactly will Gainwell fit? He'll catch a couple passes, will kind of wear a couple of hats, but to have this kind of down in, down out action, I think it's been even more surprising.
I agree. So, just want to make sure I shouted him out again. Okay, so shall we get to some emails and close out the show here?
Yeah, we have a live stream tonight, which I always forget to mention at the top of the show. But we'll have that 7 p.m. Eastern time, Dave and myself. So answer your questions. It'll be a fun show, I'm sure. Let's get to some emails and close out today's show, Dave.
Yeah, before we do, I want to make sure I shouted this out today. Jay Morrison, who covers the Bengals, we've had him regular guest coming on the show anytime the Steelers play the Bengals. He just lost his wife very unexpectedly. He posted it on Twitter this morning that supposedly it was a kind of a routine procedure or something that went wrong, and he's gonna have to take a step away because she's unexpectedly, I guess, passed away or is going to pass away here. So, just wanna make sure that, you lose sight of what, we get to do, and, we're talking about football here on a Monday morning here, and we're talking about a guy that just unexpectedly, lost his wife, great friend of the show, covers the opposition, I know, but, my heart really, really goes out to Jay Morrison, on this Monday morning, and I sent him a tweet. And if you get a chance, get on Twitter. You might want to search it out and just offer your condolences there. So I just wanted to point that out, being as how we've had him on as a guest on this show, and just sad, unfortunate news on this Monday morning. So I just want to make sure we got that shouted out there.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Yeah, sending our love and thoughts to the Morrison family, his wife Nikki, his family. That is super stunning moves. Jay's always a rock solid dude, always willing to come on and talk ball. Obviously, this is so much bigger than football, but that's just our kind of window into Jay. So really, really sad news on this Monday, Dave.
All right, to some emails here. Peter Fox writes in, "Yep, he did it again. Another year, another non-losing season. I really just wish our fans, quote unquote, put the respect on defeat that it deserves. Do I want playoff wins and Super Bowl runs? Absolutely, but you can't do that if you can't win in the regular season." To take it a bit further, he says Andy Reid is considered a coaching great, one of the best of the generation of this generation. Patrick Mahomes has been getting GOAT considerations for almost a decade and playing in 14 games this season. Andy and the Chiefs have a losing season. Mike was a late game fumble away from really shocking the world with Duck Hodges and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but still ended with a non-losing season. No question, really just needs some eyes to be open. Hashtag keep watching. So look, raise another banner, right? 19 seasons, non-losing season, 200th career win, including playoffs. Yeah, here we are. Here we are again. So, Peter, making sure everybody knows what Mike Tomlin means.
What is your feeling about that? Tomlin, another feather in the cap, another non-losing season. Pittsburgh again beating the Vegas odds of 8.5 wins, being their over/under. What is your takeaway and value on that, Dave?
I mean, and we're going to have, I think, a couple of emails in here, people saying, well, it just goes to show you the fire chant works against Buffalo. The fire Tomlin chants work. That I don't, I don't, in no way, shape, or form do I think fire Tomlin chants at that game several weeks ago made a hill of a beans of difference with Tomlin coaching that much, trying that much more or anything like that. I look, I'm surprised where this team is right now. I I really am, especially after that loss against, and I think that's a testament to Mike Tomlin not losing the lot. You
Yeah,
wrote a
I
couple
always
of
talk
weeks.
about it.
I mean, you wrote a couple of weeks ago. Mike Tomlin just does not lose locker rooms, and able to get teams up for games. So, I mean, at its core, do we want to just celebrate every year non-losing seasons and no playoff wins? Absolutely not. The standard should be the standard, but nine, 19 seasons in a row just doesn't happen by a fluke in that division that this team plays for.
Yeah, I think we can put on different hats. If you're an NFL coach, I think you have to marvel at what Tomlin has done because so few coaches even get to be on the job for that long, A, and then B, to have that kind of streak and in a world where coaching and injuries and years can change so much. It is so hard to do. So there's certainly something impressive about it to the job from one coach to another. Now, from a fan standpoint, is that the standard? Is that the goal? No. And we talk about that. I still kind of loathe that stat, and it's not something that I particularly tout too much about this team because the standard is so much more. And if Pittsburgh goes out there and loses in the wild card round, and I think that's still all that really matters is your end of the season progress, end of season report card. Are you moving forward as a franchise? And if Pittsburgh can't get the job done come that playoff game, then all this will kind of feel pretty hollow, which is how it's felt for the last many seasons. So yeah, I've always talked about the end of the season is where this thing's going to get graded on as it should be. But I could still appreciate from a coaching perspective how hard that is to do and how rare, obviously, Pittsburgh setting the record, Tomlin having the second longest streak ever by a coach to do this and to do it in this era. I think what the leader might be. Is it Landry or Belichick? I forget who has it, but for Tomlin to do it in this era of free agency and player movement and all that's happening in the world makes it, I think, even more impressive in this modern stage. But more to do. Certainly, the season is not over, and Pittsburgh's definition of success is more than just this. But you got to get to this point to have that chance to have that greater success, and Pittsburgh is in that dance every single year.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you get to the playoffs, and if you win one playoff game and then you're bounced, are you throwing a parade or anything? Absolutely not. I mean, you're in it to win it. You know,
Yeah, but it's only one team that ultimately is happy
sure.
by the end of the season. If you win a playoff game, that certainly feels like tangible signs of progress. The streaks and droughts are over. I think the bigger point to your point, Dave, Tomlin always keeps that group together, and that's the best thing you can say about Mike Tomlin in his coaching tenure because he's never lost that locker room. They've never tuned him out, and this season again is more proof of that.
Yep, I agree. All right, Nathan Casey writes in defensive MVP. Is Derek Harmon the Steelers' defensive MVP? When he plays, they are so much better. It seems it allows the other defensive line folks to be more fresh and provide better all-around snaps. Also, don't you think the Fire Tomlin crowd is largely a thing because there are too few wins like this and too many losses like to the Bengals with Flacco this year or to the 2-10 Cardinals followed by the 2-10 Patriots in 23 when we could have been the number one seed. It is nice to be the team that overcomes injuries and doesn't seem schematically disadvantaged. More wins like this and a run in the playoffs is a way to win us all back over. So I guess that's more of a statement right there. No, I mean, look, you can't discount the impact Derek Harmon has. Obviously, when he's healthy and he's playing, and he's progressed all season long. I did have not zeroed in on his play last night, but I mean, largely that defensive line did their job. I thought in this game overall. But is it enough to say that he's the defensive MVP because of his mere presence? No, but point taken that this defense is better when he's on the field. And it should be because he's number one, first round draft pick.
Sure, will win the Joe Green Award this year.
Yeah.
As he should. So yeah, the value may not be necessarily in terms of the most valuable player, but yeah, there's a stark difference between when he plays and when he doesn't. It's not just coincidence. His run defense has been excellent all season long. Who is the defensive MVP then, Dave?
That's a good question, right? I mean, Cameron Hayward just plays.
I know.
Cameron Hayward just continues to kick Father Time's ass, man. I
He
mean,
does.
plain and simple. Down in, down out. Uh, yeah, I know his sacks probably ain't where people would like to see him and all like that, but he impacts the game.
He's playing better late in the season,
Yeah,
which is insane for a
yeah.
36-year-old playing all the snaps he's playing.
I think I'd have to lean towards Cameron Hayward, man.
It's a great choice, certainly not a wrong one. I'm not sure where I would go. I might go Jalen Ramsey. The presence that he's had, making that switch to safety to calm things down there. He plays in the slot yesterday. He gives you so much versatility, kind of solves so many problems on the fly. You talk about some of the intensity, the standard that he set, some of the pregame stuff he said before games. He's given this team some speeches. His play has also still, of course, been very good. Maybe the splash plays haven't been in bunches, but it's just been really steady, consistent, strong play for a first-year player playing new positions. It's tough. Again, there's no obvious choice here.
Highsmith, when he's been healthy and on the
Yeah,
field, he's
yeah.
had some outstanding games against the run and as a pass rusher as well too. The downfall is obviously he's missed some games.
Yeah, Herbig could say the same. Very similar things there. Porter's been quietly excellent, probably on an MVP level for the team, but I still think his coverage ability is not getting the respect that it deserves. There's just old TJ Watt still had a good season based on the other, his other production. It's interesting.
All right, Nate Weems has a random points post here. You guys are sharp, so you may have already touched on all these. But number one, why is Aaron Rodgers sharper than the coaching staff on these possible review plays? He says coaching needs to be better, but in the meantime, listen to Aaron and get the damn play in, or give him the play to run give him the play to run anything. Yeah, you saw in that Darnell Washington fumble, Aaron wanted to get up there and get the Aaron might have been the only one in there that knew that was actually a fumble in there, and they were trying to substitute, I think, the eligible package in on there, and it was taking some time. And Spencer Anderson's rubbing his chest to make sure, and then you don't get the playoffs. So we've seen that more than a few times that that they're trying to get personnel in after a kind of a questionable play that could be reviewed, and they don't get the playoff. So point taken there. Number 2, I believe it was Jonnu run under 5. He's got to stay in bounds there. That's another 30 seconds of the game time and changed how Detroit used timeouts in the 2-minute warning. Really could have saved my heart a lot of stress. Do you remember that one?
I'm sorry, which one? The Jonnu Smith?
Late running out of bounds, I guess, and stopping the clock. I guess.
Jonnu. I thought there was a play where Darnell went out of bounds late. Is that
Okay, this was the one, 1st and 10, Detroit 33, 3:12 left. Jonnu left in, pushed out of bounds at Detroit 25 for 8 yards. However, though, there was a penalty for DJ Reader, defensive holding for 5 yards. So the clock would have stopped there for the penalty. Would it restarted after assessing? But
I'm not
Jonnu
sure.
ran out of bounds. So that's the play that I think that he's talking about with 3:12 left.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and
I don't
check
remember
there.
it. I don't remember the
But
situation.
there was a defensive holding which gave you the
Mhm.
first down, so it it didn't hurt you really.
Number 3, September 6, 1992, Bill Cowher's first game. Steelers upset the Oilers 29-24. I don't know why he's throwing that in there. I guess.
Because the score yesterday was 29 to
Oh, okay.
24, probably.
Okay. All right. There you go. Good on you. Nice find, Nate. All right. Let's see. Bryce back in here. Hey guys, of the Tomlin-esque wins of his career, this one might be the most Tomlin win ever. Hard to even describe it. Some thoughts. He says, sorry, guys, but if Andres Pete can rotate in at left guard, then yes, the Steelers could possibly consider moving Broderick Jones to guard if and only if Dylan Cook actually shows he is the guy and can be good every down starter. It is not out of the question, but I guess we'll see. I'm still not buying it there. I mean, just because Andres Pete, who is rotated between guard and tackle for a lot of his career, especially after his tackle days were over, can do it is you just can't rubber stamp that. I mean, I get the sentiment there overall and the whole and only if Dylan Cook actually shows he's the guy, blah blah blah. I think you're trying to grasp on to something that it's too early to try to grasp onto something there with the whole Broderick Jones thing.
Not sure what Pete playing left guard, as you said, he's been a left guard for a lot of his career, has anything to do with Broderick Jones' ability to play or not play at left guard. I don't really see the connection there.
I don't either there, but he's gonna. Bryce is trying to die on that hill. Number 2, let's give Omar Khan and Andy Weidel some love for this in-season personnel adjustments. They have brought in winning players / vets who have contributed to winning football for the team. Tomlin may have ultimately misevaluated on talent in the beginning of the season, but they have done a good job, of course correcting. Make me think if Tomlin stays, they need to take some of his personnel power and just let him coach CEO of the team. Look, I mean, Tomlin should get. I mean, Tomlin. You hear him talk about Samuel and Thielen and MVS and all. I mean, you just can't put that only on Omar Khan and Andy Weidel, right?
It's a front office thing. I'd even go deeper than that. I would look at Sheldon White, the pro personnel side, for kind of identifying some of these mid-season ads, whether you talk about, Scantling or Thielen or Asante Samuel or Andres Pete, who got signed mid-training camp. A lot of that starts, and obviously Tomlin and, guys are familiar with a lot of those names, but it's a pro personnel side kind of doing homework and keeping tabs on those guys and, offering some recommendations. So yeah, it's a lot of credit goes around there.
I guess his point he's trying to make is Tomlin should worry about coaching the team and let Andy Weidel and Omar Khan handle the personnel. Just coach the guys that we throw out there. Tomlin, you have no say in any of this.
Yeah, it's just not gonna work that way, and it's not how it's really ever worked that way, and that's not always a good excuse and just accept it. But you're paying Tomlin all this money. Tomlin obviously has been some great offseason acquisitions like Kenneth Gainwell, Deshaun Elliott last year that I'm sure Tomlin had a role in. So I'm not looking to freeze out Tomlin from that process. I think coaches in general should have a good say of who's on their roster. It's a collaborative effort, obviously, but I wouldn't sit there and say that Tomlin has to be frozen out.
All right. Got through several emails there. I got a couple more in here we did not get to. Maybe if you want to re-up these and send them to us for the Wednesday show. Go ahead.
Real quick, Dave, for just an early watch, and we'll talk about it more throughout the week. But Myles Garrett, he's got a chance to set the record with sacks. I wonder how that'll get looked at and Pittsburgh's approach to stop that. And will they care? I'm sure they'll care to some degree, but that's a storyline for you.
Our own Ross McCorkle brought it up in Discord. I don't know if he did on Twitter or not too. What happens if you get in a situation where you decide that you're going to rest Aaron Rodgers for, let's say they clinch and they have no chance at the number 3 seed, and for some reason Tomlin decides to sit Aaron Rodgers against Cleveland and Mason Rudolph ends up starting. Then you have the whole Garrett Mason Rudolph trying to run away for Garrett, making sure he doesn't get him to sat. It was just no, that's third world problems right now. I know, or first world problems at this point. I know, but that was just something Ross brought up there. Interesting that they gave him a half sack on that one.
Yeah, I think that's kind of stretching it, but anyway, will Pittsburgh run a lot? It'll be interesting. It may if it's something to play for on Sunday, then that's going to be the storyline to watch.
Yeah, let's just hope we get to a point where you technically don't have to worry about winning a game against Cleveland. That'll be a great problem to have, and we won't get the answer to that until Sunday or Saturday.
Saturday night, early Sunday morning.
Right.
Yeah, the Ravens play the night game. What's the schedule for these relevant teams, Houston and Baltimore?
Let's double check before we get out of here. And a reminder, we have a live stream at 7 Eastern time. You can find that on Alex Kozora's YouTube channel. I'm sure we'll probably have a pretty good showing for that. Let's see. Thursday, you got Cowboys at Commanders on Christmas. You got Lions at Vikings on Christmas. You have Broncos at Chiefs on Christmas on Saturday. You have Texans at the Chargers at 4:30 Eastern time. And then 8 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday night, Ravens at Packers.
All right, so yeah, that's the nightcap that will certainly mean the most. That Texans game still can mean something for seeding, but the nightcap, the one to watch.
All right, Alex, you're a trooper hanging in there with your voice again. Alex and I, once again, will have the live stream later on tonight at 7 Eastern time. We will be back on Wednesday discussing the Mike Tomlin Tuesday press conference, going over the All-22, starting to get ready to see what's happening against the Browns this next week, injury updates and all like that. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Get a username and password and log in to take advantage of that. Great show today. I enjoyed it. We will be back on Wednesday. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.